Hi there, fellow sea glass lovers. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Jackie and I create mosaics with my sea glass. Now, if you have been following me on YouTube, you may have noticed lately I've been working quite small. Well, today that changes. I am going big. This is an old storm window that a person recently gave me, and I just love it. It's green in color, which I think is super cool, so I want to leave it just as it is. And because it's a storm window, it's got these really old-fashioned screws, eye-hook screws that would screw it into the side of your house to help give that extra layer of protection when the winter comes, because we live in pretty crazy winter weather here. And this window measures 21 inches this way and 67 inches this way. I am not sure where it's going to find its final home because I want to do it in this lengthways as well. So my inspiration for this piece is Van Gogh's Starry Night. I did a sea glass mosaic of Van Gogh's Starry Night. Let me show you. So that was a fairly large piece, but this is even larger. And I'm not going to do exactly like the other one. It's just the night sky that I really want to capture in this piece. So I'm going to have a little bit of land and structure down at the bottom, but it's mostly going to be night sky. And I'm really excited about this one, creating some of those starry bits that I had shown in my other piece, and creating a lot of the wave and the movement. So this will probably take me a while. Part of my motivation for working big is that it takes a long time, because I find when I do all these small pieces, I'm really enjoying doing it, but then before I know it, it's done. And when I'm doing a large piece like this, I can just know that it's going to take hours and hours of relaxation before it's finished. And I'm really looking forward to those hours that I have ahead of me to finish this piece. So I'll give you some little clips along the way to show you the progress as I'm going. So I didn't do much of a pattern on this one. All I did was I took a dry erase marker and I drew some circles on the back, and I drew a line about 4 inches up from the bottom, just to mark roughly where I want the skyline to be, where I'm going to do some dark at the bottom. And then I'm going to work on these circles first. Now I am going to take a few of my bottle bottoms, there's a really large one, and place them there for some of the circles. But for the most part, I'm going to use my white sea glass to make circles. That one's kind of an aqua colored one. And I'm just going to put a few bottle bottoms there to get me started. So I'm starting with my stars in the sky. So I've got a tray of white sea glass. I have my quick seal adhesive caulk, which I use for the glue. I've got a couple of sticks for poking around and for cleaning up messy bits. I am going to need tweezers for this piece. And I've got a piece of paper towel. That's all I need to get going. So I made my biggest star first, and I just wanted to show you up close how I did this. So I started with one really nice piece of sea glass in the center, and then I did a lot of standing pieces of sea glass on end. So if you look closely, you can see that there's a whole lot of dimension in this great big star. And I've done them like this before, and they're really interesting once the piece gets all put together. So I'm really happy with my largest star. Now this is a smaller star, and if you look at this one, not all of the pieces are standing on end. I did some standing on end and some lying down, and it just, to me, I just kind of do it as I'm going and see what feels right and what kind of works together. The key is to have lots of different pieces of sea glass to pick from, and then to fuss around with them until they fit together. And in the end, you just get a nice circle if you stay within your lines, but you can create as much interest in that circle as you like. Now this circle, I did a really cool piece in the middle, and then I did a circle around it, a circle around it, a circle around it, and then I started spiraling a bit. So I just went kind of around like this. And to me, it just adds to the interest. Some of the pieces are standing on their side, and some are lying flat on the glass. And this star here is a complete spiral. So I start in the middle, and then I went around and around and around and around until I got all the way to tiny pieces, and it ties together to make a perfect circle. The other thing with this one is I tried to put a little bit of shades of white. So I've got a bit of a purple one, a bit of an aqua one, a bit of a yellow one. So it's to me a very interesting star with all those different shades of white. So I'll just give you a bit of a close-up view as to how I get this really stunning effect for the stars in the sky. So this circle is a dry erase marker on the back of my glass, and my goal is to fill this all in with white sea glass so that the outside of the circle goes right around that outline. So what I'm going to do, I have attached in the center of my circle a piece of sea glass, and then I'm putting sea glass on edge. So you pick sea glass that has a nice straight edge that's going to sit on the glass. So then I just put some of my adhesive caulk on the bottom of that straight edge and stand it up like that. Now this is a bit messier than when you can hide all of the silicone behind the piece of sea glass. You can't do this without seeing some of it, but this is why I like to use white silicone that dries clear, because then I can see the silicone really easily to clean it up. And then I just keep making circles of glass, all standing on end, all the way around that. And you can either spiral them like I did in the last one I just showed you, or you could make them standing on end or lying down, or you can do circle after circle after circle that's gradually getting bigger. So keep in mind when you're doing this that this is not fast art. So really take your time to pick out just the right pieces that are going to stand nicely on end and that are going to fit together with the ones that are there. You'll notice too that sea glass comes from actual glass, and a lot of glass, especially when it comes from bottles and with the white pop bottles and whatnot, they have a bit of a curve. So when you're making circles like this, I'll often notice that a piece of glass is going to curve in one way or the other. So I arrange it on my circles here so that the curvy part is actually circling around the circle. Does that make sense? I hope so. And the silicone does take a while to dry. So often when I finish a circle, like I'm doing this one where there's one in the middle, there's a circle, and a circle. So by the time I finish a circle, I'm really going to stop and fuss with getting as much silicone off as possible. Now, you can't take too much off or these pieces of glass, especially where they're standing on end, are just going to fall down. So you have to leave quite a bit at the base. But if you don't clean off as much as possible, it's going to look kind of messy once that silicone dries clear. And it will dry clear, and it looks messier now because it's white. Once it dries clear, it does look quite a bit better. And then on your very last row, as you go around the circle, just make sure that all of the pieces of sea glass line up perfectly on that pattern. And then you will have the perfect circle. You'll also know that, I'm sure if you work with sea glass, you know they're all of different thicknesses. So you might find if you only have a little bit of space, like here, you need a thinner piece of glass, whereas over here I've got a little bit more space. So for that one, I'm going to pick a thicker piece of glass, just so that it all fills in nicely. Like I can probably get away with that thicker one there. The other thing that I'll often do as I'm finishing up a circle like this is I'll use smaller pieces around the edge. Like what happens, I start in the middle kind of small, and then I use bigger pieces as I go out, but the outer layer is a little bit smaller. It just makes the outer part of your circle a little bit tidier and neater. Experience, it tells me that that's going to look better in the end. So I'll give you just a little close-up of my star now. I finished putting all the pieces of sea glass on, but the silicone still hasn't dried clear, and I still haven't wiped off the dry erase marker on the back. So after the silicone has dried clear, it will look even better. But as you can see, standing those sea glass pieces on end makes for a really interesting star. So thanks so much for joining me for this video and seeing how I create stars with my sea glass. And be sure to join me for my next video when I'll show you how I create the skyscape. So all the buildings and the trees that will make up the bottom part of this piece. And then in my third video in this series, I'll show you what I do to fill in the background in the sky to create all sorts of movement and a really dynamic night sky. So until next time, I hope you make it out to the beach, and happy sea glass hunting.